If I lived in the 8th Senatorial District in California, and it came to be election time, you would have Nancy Pelosi on one end and a meatloaf on the other. I would vote for the meatloaf. Now, the really good news is there's some fairly bright people who are running this year, and I wonder if they really have a chance to unseat her. One guy, John Dennis. He's on the phone right now. He's a libertarian who has his own real estate business. And John, you tell us why it is that you're running. Well, first you have a primary. I guess Dana Walsh will probably be running in the primary, right?
Right, that's right, for the Republican nomination. I mean, I consider myself to be in the Liberty wing of the Republican Party, same wing as Barry Goldwater and Ronald Reagan and Milton Friedman. But I've been a Republican for 25 years, and it looks like we're going to have a contested primary here in San Francisco.
You know, I'm paying some attention to this because all around America, there are right-thinking people who would, like I said, vote for a meatloaf. Over Nancy Pelosi. Less damage would be done. And I'd love to hear your platform and what's important to you. But before we get to that, I want to know why it is you think you have a chance of beating Nancy Pelosi in that district, which is extraordinarily liberal and has a pretty darn high Democratic registration.
For the same reasons that Scott Brown was able to win in Massachusetts. And incidentally, I think a meatloaf would be an upgrade
from Nancy Pelosi. Yeah, but I want to hear why it's a downgrade from you too. All right, so you're feeling you're getting that sense in San Francisco, in that area, like they had in Massachusetts, huh?
Well, we have been talking to, of course, Republicans, but also to Democrats and independents, and this is our unscientific information. About 1 out of 4, 1 out of 5. Democrats said they will absolutely not vote for Nancy Pelosi next year.
Why?
They're disappointed with her across the board. A lot of the folks who saw her fighting to stop the war in Iraq when George Bush was in office, and see her now twisting arms behind the scene to continue funding Afghanistan, find it the height of hypocrisy. And no matter whether or not you want to stay in Afghanistan, you have to recognize that this is just pure politics.
So it's personal hypocrisy on her part, and the left is either going to vote against her or stay home, you think, in some dramatic fashion?
Yeah, I think that there are motivated people to vote against her. People motivated to vote for anybody but Pelosi.
Okay, well, let's rack up a couple other reasons why you think that they would vote for someone other than Pelosi, and then get to, do you think that they would actually come out and vote for you? And if so, why, on what point? So 1 of 5 Dems will not vote for Pelosi next year. And the reason is hypocrisy on the war in Afghanistan. What about
also, incidentally, hypocrisy in terms of in terms of class warfare? She uses class warfare as a tool on a regular basis, but then lives a very nice lifestyle on the taxpayer dime. And,
well, that hasn't worked against Democrats historically, has it? I mean, they've been getting away with that nonsense for years. It's just a hammer in the tool bag.
This is a whole new level. I mean, flying across the country in a 757, which they say only costs $3,000 an hour to operate. I think a Learjet costs about $10,000 an hour to operate.
Well, I wonder how many people are really aware of what's really going on, because most folks will say everyone gets to use a plane. Especially if you're going to be Speaker of the House, then you get that extra security. Why deny her when you wouldn't deny anyone else, any other Republicans and such? I wonder, and that's a strong argument, and one I think anyone could make successfully. But I wonder how many people really realize that she is squandering over $100,000 on food and booze while trotting around the country in these military aircraft with her family.
It's like the Pelosi Air Party.
Yeah, I know, but I wonder how many people actually know that. She's trying to reach out to people saying, we feel your pain, that sort of thing, and yet she's got the Courvoisier and the Jack Daniels and all the booze flowing freely in all these airplanes she's flying around in.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think that the mainstream media has dropped this story. They haven't looked at it. I think on the Republican side and the right side, people know more about it than than people who just follow the mainstream media. You have to keep in mind that Nancy Pelosi has dangled a bailout of the newspapers, out there. She's put that out in front of a lot of these dying newspapers. So how likely do you think they are to write a critical story like that about her?
Well, that plus she keeps bringing up the unfairness doctrine over and over again to try to get shut down talk radio around the country. That's what would happen, because we saw it happen back until the 1980s, how that was working. Do you really, though, believe that because these newspapers are in such financial turmoil that they will just ignore all these stories about her? Yeah, you're laughing at me. Okay.
Bite the hand that feeds you. Sure. Yeah. I think it's got to be talked about. It has to be in the equation. Would the editorial board of the San Francisco Chronicle run the risk of upsetting the person who could at the end of the day be their saviors?
But they like her anyway, so they don't want to say anything bad about her.
And on top of that, they don't want to say anything bad about her because they like her too. So it's sort of an insurance policy.
Yeah, they're on the same team, right?
Apparently, because there are lots of interesting things happening in this town. There are lots of interesting things happening in this campaign, and we haven't really received a lot of interest from them. Our campaign website is a rocket. We're going to soon become the #1 campaign website in America. And
in what measurement? How are you measuring that?
Alexa.com is the standard of website traffic. The only two websites that we see that are above us at the moment are Rand Paul's out of Kentucky, and then the gentleman you and I just discussed, Peter Schiff. And both of those folks have been static in their positions, and ours is the one that's rising. I think we'll pass Rand this next week, and then Peter sometime after that.
Yeah, for those of you who are just tuned in, this is John Dennis. He's a libertarian looking for the Republican nomination, I guess, too, aren't you? You're going to run is that how you're registering as a Republican as well now? So you can run the primary against Dana Walsh and then take on Pelosi? Is that accurate or no?
No, well, I've been a Republican for 25 years. I'm just in the same part of the party as Barry Goldwater.
Gotcha.
And
I want folks to know that he and I were talking about Peter Schiff because John has worked with the Ron Paul campaign in the past. Yeah.
And then, in terms of the primary, I actually live in the district. People... That's why I've received all of the endorsements from all the local Republican leaders across the board. So, and people are excited about the campaign. And the reason why, when I first started, the consultants said, "Look, do whatever you want to do, John. Just don't tell people you can win, because no one will take you seriously. You'll just be looked at like some loon here in San Francisco." But the fact is that sometime back in December, my team and I sat down and we said, "Look, we're just getting this data. We see not only the 1 out of 4, 1 out of 5 Democrats who won't vote for Pelosi, but we have 7, 8 out of 10 independents who absolutely won't vote for her either." So we started working out scenarios and how we could actually win this thing. And the truth is that the libertarian positions, and I consider myself a constitutional conservative, a libertarian conservative. Those libertarian positions will allow me to reach out across the political spectrum and actually put together the kind of coalition that can actually take on Nancy Pelosi.
What's the registration in the district?
233,000 Democrats, 136,000 independents, 34,000 Republicans.
233,000 Democrats, 34,000 Republicans. And about
136 on the independents.
And 136,000 independents. Here in this state, see, I'm registered as independent, but I'm conservative.
Sure.
And because too often I think Republicans are squishy. So, but in other people here who I've talked to over the years register as independent, but they consider themselves to be liberal.
Sure.
So what's your gut sense or gut feeling about which way the independents go in your district there in California?